Watercolor. The modern version that you're probably familiar with was perfected in the 18th century. However, early versions of watercolor date back to the cavemen, who mixed charcoal and other pigments with water to paint pictures of animals which we now know as cave paintings. 3 years ago, I attempted to paint using watercolor for the first time. Good. Oh. Well, that looks awful. I'm clearly not gifted at this, am I? And since then, I have not touched a paintbrush, so today I'm back to delve deeper into this art form and maybe even improve. But before we can start to improve, we need a first attempt, a baseline painting, before learning any tips or any tricks that we can use to track my progress. Here is the painting that I will be attempting to recreate. Let's give it a go, shall we? So I've completed my first attempt, and it's not awful, considering that I have not done any watercolouring at all in the last 3 years. It's not horrific, you know? Like, I don't have much practice, it's not going to be perfect. But I think it's time to do some learning, so the first place I'm going to go is the internet, because when has that ever gone wrong for anyone? This video here looks really good because it has the different types of strokes, and I feel like that's something that I literally have no clue how to do. Like how have they got this using the same colour, but they've got some darker and some lighter? Why are there some crisp edges and some not crisp edges? Do you see what I'm saying?
2 glasses of clear water. One to wash the paint off your brush, and the second one to rinse it completely clean. This avoids colours from getting muddy.
2 cups of water. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Okay, so he doesn't go straight from the palette. Okay, I am here with not 1, but 2 cups of water. So what he did also, which was interesting, was he just got loads of red in there. Immediately contaminated one of the cups.
I'm going to wet this first tile with a really even layer of clean water. You can see that immediately starts bleeding into the paper.
I did not think about the fact that you could paint on wet paper. Like, that sounds so silly, but I did not think about that. And then I need this to be wet also. Okay, how long do I wait here? Do you know what this is? I'm just gonna go for it now. So he does one big one here. Whoa. Okay. I think I might have gone a bit early on that one with just a small amount of water. So that was too wet. I don't know what was too wet. I don't know if it was the paper or if it was what was on the brush. But I mean, I'm getting the vibes. I'm getting the vibes. He's really saturating the brush.
I'm going to paint the same shape of poppy, but with wet paint on dry paper.
I feel like wet on dry is basically what I've been doing this whole time. So I feel like I've got that one down. I need to figure out if this is the correct paint to water ratio. Yeah, look, that's too watery, isn't it? Need more pigment on that. Let's try again. Yes.
So I'm going to paint each petal individually and let them dry individually before painting the next one. You can also use the glazing technique with multiple colours. Some yellow paint, and then put some blue over the top. You can glaze a green colour in between. I
have realised in this exact moment that I have majorly underestimated you watercolourers, because I did not realise with watercolour that the colour doesn't have to bleed. I know that sounds so silly, but like, I've never let anything dry and then gone on top of it. I've just been going and going and going and not stopping. So we need to have more water, less paint. So that's a little bit more of a watered down version. Like so. And then we need to wait for it to dry. Yeah. Did that work? Maybe it wasn't dry enough. Let's let it dry. Because that looks significantly darker. Okay. Okay, that's decent. I mean, I did kind of glaze.
I'm going to paint a paler colour and then charge in with a darker colour to create a very subtle gradient effect.
This is insane. The amount of different effects that you can achieve is crazy. I literally can't believe that all 4 of these are created with the same paint, the same colours as well. Like, because in my head, if I see a darker colour, I'll use like the dark red, and if I see a lighter colour, I'll use an orange instead. And I'm like, why does it just look wrong? And it's because it's the paint to water ratio. Okay, so I need to be prepared. We make our first leaf shape. Quickly saturate this one. Go, whoop. Whoa! Do I have to wait for it to dry again? Let's just get a satisfying shot really quick. That's alright.
I'm going to take the richer mixture of paint, so I'm going to start with that line and just make sure it's beading on the surface. Then I'll take my clear water and fill in the rest of the shape. Gradient.
That's so pretty. If I've ever painted when I was a child, it would have been with more, I guess, like acrylic paint. And once it's on the page, it pretty much stays still. But this, like, you can see, like, in between the clips where he's not painting, it moves. Like, it's really cool. This is interesting because you really have to think about the shape you're trying to paint before you start. We go like this, saturate this with water. This one you need to have your timing down. Oh my gosh. Oh no. Okay, I mean that was my fault. After trying all of these new techniques, it was clear that I needed a lot of practice. So I went away and spent hours on each different technique. And once I felt that I had mastered it, I wrote little notes to myself to remind myself how to do each technique, because I knew that I would forget. After doing this with every single technique, I felt I was ready to try again. So I got my paper out and I started painting. And I really feel like in some elements I have definitely improved. The trees look so much better. I really loved using the wet and wet technique during this attempt. And even though this attempt is definitely an improvement from my last, it's still looks nothing like the original, so I'm bringing in the big guns, a real artist. This is Sophia. She has been painting for over 6 years and has created some amazing pieces of artwork. She even won an art contest at just the young age of 11. She is a genius, but more importantly, she is my sister. Sorry, you can cut that out. You can see in the original one, the bits, what we call the foreground, are the most vibrant, the most saturated colours. As you go further back into the scene, it gets less and less saturated, hence why it looks more grey. Right! How do I make the correct colour? With watercolour, yeah. You just add water, baby. Let's take this colour, for example. That should be less saturated. See? So more diluted equals further back. That's one way that you can demonstrate that. Also, you could change the colour that you're using. If I just use this colour that's in the palette, yeah, that's like the most vibrant I can get it. I can't make it more vibrant. If I add white or black, I can make it look more muted. Black plus water equals grey on white paper. Yeah. Does that make sense? So I've got this greeny black colour, and then I'm just gonna add more water. It will make a really muted version of that. That's so interesting! Oh, that's the thing with watercolour, it dries lighter. Did you know that? No. Like if I just have water on a page, when it dries it'll be completely clear. Yeah. It still looks dark. Right. But if you're trying to get a colour, and you mix something up and put it on the page and it's still wet and it looks like the right colour, it might not look right because it will dry lighter. See, look at the middle of it, it's now getting clear. Gone. Right. Something else I noticed is the trees kind of the same thickness as you go up the tree, whereas the ones in that painting, the leaves are much more sparse at the top. How do you see these things? You just look. Whereas on yours, you have got the colour from the bottom and the middle, but then at the top, I think it's more pronounced in no, I see. Okay. I put more scratchy grass vibes. And I'm going to explain that. In the original painting as well, I think the technique is a little bit different right in the foreground. So yours is a really nice, what we call a wash. Just like where you paint with water, everything's really blended and like you do it and then you have to wait for ages for it to dry. And I think it looks really good. But if you look at the original, it's really scratchy. If I was going to do this, for example, you can see the colours, it kind of like blends and it looks all like swooshy. So a technique you can do for watercolour, you could just like scratch it on. You can see how one, with the drier brush, you can see where the little bristles are on some of it, whereas this is very smooth. Right, got you. So maybe what I would do if I was trying to copy it, do a wash first and then go over the top with a darker colour. In some of the shadows, your brown is very dark or you've used a black. So you have to compare it to the other parts, right? Because in my head it's just light or dark. You need to see life in the grey scale, it's not black or white. The effect of this painting is very like whimsical. It looks like a wild paint. Not wild as in like There's a lot of movement because of the techniques they've used. But well, yeah, but you're right, but how did you know that? Because I just looked at it. So why has he got white in grass? Because that doesn't make any sense. Maybe it was snowy. Don't know. Wow. That's right. So I put Clouds, good technique, but that's not what it looks like. He. Well, I would say the first ones you did look more similar to the original painting. Okay, so I need to go through my techniques and find one that will match that. You could also use wax. That's what people do sometimes. If you use a candle, or like oil pastels, they're wax-based, which repels the water. I could draw something with candle, with a wax-based material. Yeah. Underneath a watercolor wash, then it will repel the water so it'll stay white. Right. The only other point I have written down is line by reflection should be lighter. I don't really know how to do that though. Dilute it more. The issue with that though was that if it's more diluted, then I feel like it goes wider naturally. It will sometimes appear thicker because there's more water on the brush. So if I just get some black, that's a line that I'd make. Correct. So I could add a load more water. If I just use that, it's kind of harder to make the line thinner because there's more water to it. So I could just make my brush more dry and then get a bit, you could even just dot it on there and then you should be able to make a thin line with a very light colour. It's still black. You're a magician. I'm not. That's a really light grey, but it's just black. But it's just black. Dilute. 2 extra tips that I have from great women in life. One is mum, one is my old art teacher. Mum says if you're trying to copy something, it should be like 90% look. Just from looking at the 2 attempts that we have here, they're good, but I can see that you haven't looked at it. I'm also obsessed with how this line is not even remotely straight. My second tip is from my art teacher. She cooks her vegetables in sun cream pate. She said blue shadows, and she might have slayed actually. Shadows are blue. They're not black. I understand now what she was trying to say was if you're doing a shadow that's in the background, it shouldn't be as intense in the foreground. Thank you so much, sister, for coming to help me. Let's give this a go. Listening to all the advice that she had to give me was so helpful. I really feel like there was stuff that I can now work on and include in the final version. And with this new advice of desaturating the colours as they go further back, I thought I can do that. Easy peasy, let me give it a try. One of the things that I needed to do was look more than doing. So before I even picked up the paintbrush, I went through and tried to identify every technique that I could find. I tried to isolate different colours and name them instead of looking at them and just thinking that's black, because it's not. But most importantly, I actually measured everything and realised how badly my proportions had been off. And I thought, you know what, I can't do this by just eyeballing it. So for this attempt, I got out my piece of paper and a pencil, and I actually measured everything and drew it very carefully in pencil before I started with the paint. And so we were here, the final attempt. Everything had come down to this. I got advice from the internet. I got advice from a real life artist. And you know what they say? Third time's a charm, right? Well, apparently not. What was so frustrating is that I could see that the colours were wrong, but I had no idea how to correct them. I decided to take it back a step. So I went back to the original painting and I isolated different sections to try and colour match them because I clearly do not understand colour theory. I then printed these colours out and tried so hard to colour match. And I am telling you, this literally took me 3 hours, maybe more than that. Woo! Yes, I did it. My brain cannot comprehend colours after spending so many hours mixing different colours and different amounts of water to colour match. An impossible task. I finally achieved it and I was ready. The real final attempt. I've colour matched these. It literally cannot go wrong. Why is watercolor so hard? I literally had a breakdown at this point. I literally gave up. I give up. I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I've literally spent hours colour matching it and still the colours are wrong. So I enlisted my mother, who is also an artist. My mum, in the infinite wisdom that she has, said, Jazz babes, you just need to dilute it more. I had colour matched and then waited overnight to do the actual drawing. And obviously overnight, all of the paints had evaporated. So what was left was some really thick colours. I diluted the living daylights out of every single colour. I was like, Mum, what do I do? And she was like, babes, you've got to start again. There's no fixing this. I took a few hours off. Regained my sanity, drew the lines again. I picked up my paintbrush. I did my first stroke, and off I went. This has been a journey, starting with my first attempt. I knew absolutely nothing. I was just throwing water and pigment and hoping that it would stick. Considering the painting I'm trying to copy, the colours, proportions, shapes, everything is off in my first attempt. And I have absolutely no idea how I thought that this horizon line was level. Thanks to the Fine Liner Nerds tips, we upgraded from this to this. I learned actual watercolor techniques and started to use them kind of correctly, and it made a huge difference. After hearing from Sophia, who is a really great artist, I learned loads about the composition of a painting, and then I started my final attempt. Well, my first final attempt and then my second final attempt, which I got the colors wrong on both, but after 4 total attempts, I started my actual final painting. The final painting! Oh my gosh, I literally did it. I actually think it looks pretty similar to the original. The proportions, the colors, the saturation, the shape, the techniques, they're all looking pretty good. Now, it turns out to really improve on something, you have to put a lot of time into it. And after lots of time, I see improvement. So, although it's definitely not perfect, I think I've learned how to watercolor. Can you clap for us?
Nope. Naturals.